Are you familiar with the 1979 sci-fi film Alien? Well, if you haven't seen it, we're headed deep into spoiler country because it turns out that the plot of Alien is a great analogy for infection with the novel SARS coronavirus. Let me guide you through. So our story starts with the crew of a space vessel who land on a remote moon. There, crew member Officer Kane has the dubious honor of discovering alien eggs, one of which promptly hatches and attaches itself to his face. And there we have our first similarity. Because just like the alien, coronaviruses need to first attach to our cells in order to actually infect them. But well, the alien facehugger hugs faces. SARS-CoV-2 hugs proteins on the surface of our cells, so it can then pull itself inside our cells, where it will incubate. But that's not all. Both the alien and the coronavirus have more tricks up their sleeves. Let's start with the alien. So back on the spaceship, the facehugger has fallen off Officer Kane, and he seems to be fine. But we soon find out that evidently the alien emigrated from his face down to his abdomen. Now, some call the mature alien form that bursts out of Officer Kane and kills him a chest burster, but I would argue that it's better classified as a gut eruptor. And there, we have our second similarity, because just like the alien, some viruses, including the coronavirus, can direct themselves to a sort of stomach for their own benefit, the stomach of the cell. Because just like each of us on the macro level, each of our cells needs to digest nutrients. And they do this in tiny little microstomachs called lysosomes. But now, like the alien, the coronavirus can direct itself towards these cellular stomachs, all the while hiding from immune defenses, kind of like the alien hides inside Officer Kane. And then, when it gets acidic enough, that's the cue for the virus to burst out of the cell stomach and start wreaking havoc. Now in the film, the only options for survival depended on blocking the alien before it could ever hug your face, either by arming yourself or isolating yourself. And that kind of tracks in a world with the coronavirus where we have vaccines, masks, and quarantines. But our lab asked, what if you still get infected despite your best efforts? To address this, we turned to our knowledge of the digestive system of the cell. And to do this research, we actually grew mini human guts in the lab. We call them intestinal organoids. And using these mini guts, we could find drugs that could stop the virus from ever being able to enter gut eruptor mode in the cells that make up the human intestine. Micro meets macro again. So we're filling a gap and stopping the virus after it hugs the cell's face, but before it bursts out of the cell's stomach. In other words, we're saving Officer Kane. Thanks.
Good. Brilliant. Really, really good. Well done, Alex. That was great.
Thank you.
Well done. That was fantastic. I love the use of the props as well. That was it took me by surprise, the first one, and then even the second one took me by surprise as well, just out of nowhere. Great. So if we're all happy there, no one had any tech issues during that one, we'll move on.
Okay, so we'll go for our clap and our look of shock again from the amount of alien props that Alex has. So we'll go for our claps. Well done, Alex. Brilliant. Fantastic. Lovely, lovely props as well. And even the language you were using, gut eruptor mode, I love that. And it's very topical, of course. You know, I was wondering if anyone would talk about COVID. Also very topical because Alien this week was named as the #1 horror film worldwide. So, you know, hopefully everyone who's watching has seen it. So absolutely brilliant. I am going to go to the judges for their questions, and I'm going to kick off with Kai.
Thanks for that talk, and I have to say, really elegant alien receiving both times. I'm really curious about this gut eruptor blocking mechanism that you described, because what's really interesting is that I would assume that it wouldn't really be affected by the new variants that are circulating, because it doesn't matter if it's already entered, right? You prevent it from erupting later. So can you just tell me a bit more about this approach that you're doing in the lab?
Yeah, definitely. You've hit exactly on the beauty of this approach. So this type of drug that we're looking into, they're called autophagy blockers. So autophagy is a big part of the research that I do. It's sort of the digestive system or the decluttering system of the cell. It gets rid of what the cell doesn't need anymore, including viruses. But some viruses, like the coronavirus, sort of hijack this. the beauty of using this system is that, like you've hit on, Kai, it doesn't lose its efficacy if the virus evolves to have slightly different receptors. And even more cool is that this is actually not only a method that we can use to hopefully treat coronavirus, but it will also work against other viruses that use the same system. This project actually started out with a focus on dengue virus, and now we've taken along corona for the ride as well. So we call it a host-directed therapy as opposed to a virus-directed therapy. And yeah, the beauty is it's translatable.
Fantastic, Alex. Thank you very much. And Madeline, next question.
I love the use of props, slightly terrifying for somebody who hates anything alien-esque. But why do you think it was important to kind of use that analogy of the film in explaining this topic to people that maybe, this is a completely new topic for them?
Yeah, good question. I actually hit on this analogy during a lab meeting. I'm the only one in my group who works on dengue virus, which kind of does the same thing as corona in this case. And I was thinking, okay, how can I explain how dengue virus works to people who've never worked on it? And it was an easily adaptable explanation for the general public for coronavirus as well. And what's quite nice about this analogy is you can take it even further, because in the film, at the very beginning, Sigourney Weaver, the best character in the film, says, wait, we can't let Officer Kane back onto the spaceship. We have to put him in quarantine and see what happens. And classically, people don't listen to her. And, you can kind of see how this happens if we don't take contagious disease seriously. So I think there are a lot of additional ways you can build on this analogy, which was part of why I chose it.